You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. So, Doksuri, a super typhoon, as we look at it on this live satellite imagery of the storm moving northwestwards closer and closer to the Philippine Islands. Although, curiously, when we were looking at it yesterday, it was going further west than expected. Right now, one might suggest that it's going a little bit further east than expected now. But the track overall remains very precarious, and its movement is generally going to continue northwestwards towards the Batanes Islands and the Calayan and Babayan group of islands off the northern tip of Luzon in the Philippines, and it's expected to get there and possibly make one or more landfalls there in the next 24 hours. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and it's nice to see you once again. We were on the air last night on YouTube. We didn't have enough time to set up all the other platforms, but I'm happy to say that tonight we are simulcasting on Facebook and Twitter for our audiences there. So nice to have everyone aboard with us tonight / this morning, local time over there in the Philippines. So, this storm, a powerful one, absolutely. Winds of 150 miles per hour sustained, that's 240 kilometers per hour, and an estimated central pressure of 930 millibars. I'm in the studio. I'm joined by my team, of course, for this 2-hour time slot on this occasion, and we have with us right now Dino, Taniel, Alex, Ethan, and another Alex. Actually, we've got two Alexes. This will get confusing. One on the east coast and one on the west coast of the US. So I think that's how I'll refer to you guys tonight. But first, let's talk to one of our main graphics gurus, Ethan. Tell us what you think of the storm right now, and you'll be doing some work on the forecast a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a forecast cone right now, Nathan. And just looking over my previous forecast cone, it's really interesting because the forecast point that I had 24 hours out from last night's stream, or 24 hours ago, had the forecasted position due west of where the storm is right now. So it's trended a little bit more towards the east. In the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really mean much. It's just a slight track difference. Overall, the motion is still expected to be towards the northwest, and a track to the south of Taiwan, to the north of Luzon, moving through the northern Philippine Islands is what is still on the forecast. Now, the big question, though, is the intensity forecast. Obviously, this storm has significantly intensified and is now with winds of 150 miles per hour. Cannot rule out some additional intensification. Hard to say if it will get towards Category 5 status, but we'll have to wait and see what I forecast at the forecast cone.
Well, here's the JTWC's forecast, and it depicts the storm initializing it at the same strength. They're expecting it to get a little bit stronger, but not to Category 5, borderline as a matter of fact, and then gradual weakening, which becomes much rapid weakening as it moves west of Taiwan and then towards the coast of China. So it does thread between the major land masses, but the impacts of the mountains of Taiwan primarily, they think will really get to this storm. Taniel, you've been looking at the storm in more ways than one throughout the course of today. What do you make of it right now?
Well, Early this morning, Eastern Daylight Time, I was looking on the ISS side of imagery and caught an ISS flyover. Nathan, if you redirect the
There
stream
we go.
to mine, uh, we'll watch that flyover for the people that have not gone over to the Space Channel.
Yeah.
It's over there as well. Um,
So
Beautiful structure from space.
so this would have been yesterday afternoon local time.
Um, yeah, roughly.
When it was on that strengthening trend, which is still ongoing, we think, although, well, maybe not actually. We'll get onto that in a minute, but there it is from the International Space Station, probably yesterday afternoon local time, and it really looked quite exemplary on that imagery.
Yes, I'm gonna try to capture it again tonight into tomorrow for the next flyover, but we'll see how it differs the next time around. Something with that eye structure will probably be different than what we see here.
Fascinating imagery. So that's one view of the storm, and we're just starting to get visible imagery now of Doksuri today. Just loading this imagery up right now. This is the RAM rapid scan and from the Himawari 9, and you can see just about getting those first visibles on what looks like a very impressive eye structure. Very warm temperatures inside that eye right now. I don't know exactly what temperature that it is, but I think I heard quoted earlier 21 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'll give
So
you a rough estimate shortly.
yep, so a very good eye structure, but I think it's you can't ignore the northwestern side and how it looks a little bit weak or small in stature compared to the other sides of the storm. If anyone wants to take this up, why is that happening, and is this going to be a fatal issue for the storm down the line?
I think it's primarily due to wind shear. And if you look at the latest infrared imagery, you can see that the coldest cloud tops right now are attempting to wrap around the northern side. So we'll have to wait and see if that wraps around the western side. But if that wraps around the western side, then we definitely have a storm near Category 5 status.
It has been doing it in some degree, and that's why we're managing to give it super typhoon status in the first place, which is, by the way, quite a bit earlier than what the forecast was initially. So I really don't think we can rule out Category 5 status, certainly much more likely than it probably was yesterday.
Mm. Also, current eye temperature is roughly around 19 Celsius.
19. So pretty decent
Roughly.
there. Let's see if we can get some more imagery. Well, before we do that, you can see on the top left of our screen as well, we have the Pegasa warnings for this storm, of course, of which there are quite a few. But I am just gonna... Which image is it? Oh, it hasn't loaded. I'm just trying to get some other imagery up right now. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get the full Pegasa cone. Oh, there's some imagery that's starting to appear. Goodness knows what's going on here. There's the Pegasa cone, by the way, though. They, of course, have... they've not gone with Super Typhoon as of the 2 a.m. update, but later updates might change that. And then they do forecast Super Typhoon a little bit later on, later today, as it gets close to Santa Ana and then through the first set of islands and then curving back towards the northwest. Okay, just want to get this to cover the full screen so I can switch windows in the background. There is some infrared of the storm, its progress over the last 12 hours or so. And whilst we keep looking at that for a bit, let me give you the latest from Pegasa. As of 5 a.m., so that cone before was from 2 a.m. This is the 5 a.m. update. We've got Signal 3 warnings for the Babayan Islands, The northern and eastern portions of mainland Cagayan, the northeastern portion of Isabela, and the northern portion of Apayao. I can't remember whether that was the situation before or not. Let me just look back again. Yeah, it was. Signal 2 warnings in effect for, let's see, gale force winds on the Batanas, the rest of mainland Cagayan, the rest of Isabela, Quirino, the northern portion of Nueva Vizcaya, the rest of Apayao, Kalinga, Abra, Mountain Province, Ifugao, the northern portion of Benguet, and Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, and the northern and central portion of Aurora. Signal 1 basically for the entirety of the rest of Luzon, and for most of Samar still, except the most southern part of the island. And I think that's everything. So pretty much all of Luzon under some kind of warning at this point. I remember people saying in comments yesterday that whether those warnings will extend further west. Well, it certainly looks as though they have. And of course that graphical depiction up on the top left hand side. And also thanks to Daniel, I forgot earlier, for supporting our stream tonight in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Any reason? You like what we do?
I'm part of what we do.
I know. I mean, we really appreciate it. I mean, the people who contribute on our streams, you know, we support them as much as we can in being able to help provide our extensive coverage. But anyways, if you've got any comments and questions for us tonight / this morning local time, start your message with Force 13 all in text on YouTube, or you can post a comment on Facebook, and I'll try and keep up with Twitter as well, and I'll be able to get onto any comments. Mainly YouTube, of course, which is what we predominantly feature on. So let's get a first comment, and thank you, A Moment of Lovely, saying keep it up. Yes, we certainly will. Very important.
Wink, wink.
Blimey. 1 Force 13 memberships. All right. So, Hurricane Altony Bronze says, what do you think? I just went off my page. What do you think the peak intensity of Typhoon Doksuri will be upon landfall? Now, when we look at the storm right now, it is becoming more tangible that it could start weakening before it reaches one of these islands. But I would still suggest that it will be a Category 4 landfall if it does indeed directly impact one of those islands ahead of it.
I would support that.
Yep.
Yep.
Xavier Nostalgia says, how large is the eye? Now, last night, I remember it was about 35 nautical miles across. Today, I'm not sure. I've not checked. I'll have a little look.
30.
30?
30 at longest. At shortest, since it's a little elongated right now.
Yeah, I've just corroborated that. It's about 30
Around
miles.
25. The other bottom to top, and then sideways, it's 30.
So it's a bit smaller this morning, and it's you can see that it has shrunk a little bit on the satellite imagery as well. So just makes you wonder, I mean, could we be getting relatively close to an eyewall replacement cycle if the northwest doesn't hold up?
It could be possible. I mean, it's on a fringe here. It's literally eye wall, only a little bit, and then open.
Yeah.
It's dangerously close. If it can't fix itself and it cracks, it could be a bad time for the storm. But luckily, it's, again, in mostly favorable conditions, besides a little shear that's currently affecting it. So we'll have to see how it holds up and how long it can hold up.
Yeah, just looking elsewhere as well.
The infrared looks. It's like trying to battle off
There we go.
the wall, and
It is. It's certainly got
little-
hallmarks of a heavy wind shear on that northwestern side.
Yeah, it's now a little off to one side than the other, where most of the convection is.
Still a fantastic looking eye, though, and we're happy to take as many questions as you've got for us tonight. Arlen says, why will Doksuri weaken on approach to China? Well, I think it's mainly due to the land interaction with Taiwan, although I'm not sure what the agencies are saying, so I will have a look and see what the JTWC have in terms of their reasoning. And I'm just going to take a look here. So, their discussion reads as follows. Super Typhoon Doksuri, because it is now Super Typhoon, will continue on its northwestward track under the steering ridge into the Luzon and Taiwan Straits before making landfall near Xiamen, China, just after 72 hours. The highly favourable environment will fuel further intensification to a peak of 155 miles per hour in 12 hours. Afterward, an eye wall replacement cycle will initially weaken the system, followed by increasing land interaction with the northern tip of Luzon and Taiwan. Before landfall, diminishing outflow ahead of a mid-latitude trough will further weaken the system down to just 70 knots by 72 hours, still strong. After landfall, interaction with the rugged terrain, increasing vertical wind shear will rapidly erode the system, leading to dissipation by 5 days as it tracks deeper into the Chinese interior. A little note on what they say about the models. Numerical models are in tight agreement up to 72 hours with a gradual and even spread to a mere 162 nautical miles with GFS on the right margin, NavGem and ECMWF on the left margin of the envelope. However, recent trochoidal motion may continue in the near term. We saw a lot of that yesterday as well, lending only moderate confidence in the JTWC's track forecast that it's laid just to the right of Con W in slight favour to the GFS solution. Trying to figure out what Con W means. There's a low confidence in the extended portion of the forecast due to the variability associated with a land track, of course, and that is pretty normal, standard. So that's the JTWC cone there, and it's a pretty straightforward track. And despite no major land masses that the eye tracks over, the land mass of northern Luzon and Taiwan will still affect the storm they're banking on, at least, for it to weaken 3 whole categories before its final landfall.
Yeah. Also, I did find a live camera, Nathan,
Really?
from the Philippines. I don't know. Hold on. Let's see. Don't know what part, because I have no idea.
Oh, that's on Palawan. That's on the other side of the Philippines. It's way southwest.
But still seems to be getting a little impacted.
Let's have a look. That is Palawan. Looks interesting. I assume that's rain, not fog. It's
A little windy.
A little windy.
There's a tiny bit of winds there.
Fairly calm, but quite gloomy, of course.
Yeah.
That one single soul out on the dock.
Yeah, that is. That is. Yeah, there's very few cameras up in the area that the storm will be affecting.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever managed to source one in the years that we've been covering storms that have affected that area. I mean, the first one we probably covered live was Typhoon Maysak in 2015 that clipped that very northern tip of Luzon as a Category 5, if anyone remembers that one. Sorry, not Maysak, Nul. Typhoon
Maysak.
Nul. Yeah, we did
Typhoon.
cover Maysak, though, as well.
Typhoon Noel?
Yeah,
Philippine name Dodong?
I think it was.
Alright. Just checking.
It's a while ago now. I'm struggling to remember. So yep, that's the GWC cone. And let's give you now a wide shot of the whole Western Pacific area. There it is, and that shows Typhoon Doksuri about to enter daylight, and also the continuing development potentially of the next system, 91W. Would anyone like to give a few words on that?
I can.
Sure.
So I was looking at Zoom.earth and then I saw that there's 91W on the about south east of Doksuri. And then it may come within somewhat near Philippines, but I was unsure that the ocean heat contents may intensify 91W.
Maybe not so much. It's going to take a more northerly track, but certainly sea surface temperatures out to a high latitude now are very good indeed.
Additionally, I wanted to say about Doksuri's, excuse me, path. Well, all I see is that Doksuri will scrape through the islands between Taiwan and Philippines, and then brush through calcium, and then make landfall around east of Hong Kong, very far, and then ended around near Wuhan or so.
All right. I was going to say is, what do we make of the ice shrinking and the very thin northwestern quadrant? We did cover that, but it's holding on at the moment, and it's still looking good value for 150 miles per hour, if I do say so myself. And here's another view that we can just blow up here. The what's known as the NHC enhancement, popular with the National Hurricane Center in years gone by, showing the track of the storm once again, last 12-hour period, and lots of deep convection well in there. And you'll note over Palawan as well, some thick cloud there too, which is where that webcam was. So the influence of this storm pretty much blanketing the whole of the Philippine Islands, and it is going to be a big rainmaker for a few spots. Indeed, Mindoro, we're still looking at potentially towards 50 inches of rainfall from its potential quasi-monsoonal type pattern that's being enhanced by the southwestern side of this storm. And you can see at the moment western Mindoro there is under a lot of white for most of that loop. Now then, let's go back to, where was I going to go next? Well, let's go to get some more questions then. Zeno says, when do we expect the next hurricane in the Atlantic? Well, we've notched one on the board now with Don, which is
No
now...
hurricane.
Don's dead, by the way, if anyone was wondering. Yeah, when do you
Sad
think the
face.
next one might be? It could even be as soon as next week, with the potential for another main development region system.
Nathan, can I say something about 91W?
Yeah.
I've noticed something very interesting. It seems to take a similar path to Typhoon Vera.
What?
No, not that one. I forgot which year, but the one that struck China.
You've been looking at
So-
too much history. I can't remember this one either.
It was on the top 100, but as you can see here, it makes a 981 millibar, 980 millibar landfall in China right here, scraping, like, I don't think
North
it
of
touches
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Yeah, it goes over Taiwan just barely, and it makes a landfall in China right there. And this is the same exact, like, path that Vera took. Don't remember which year, though. You can probably do some more research on that, but I just wanted to point that
Well,
out.
I can't remember
regarding
either, so
91W. Yeah,
that's the Euro model. We'll have, as a matter of fact, the new 18Z GFS will have just come out, so I'm going to go and take a look at that, actually.
All right.
Let's see what we find on the GFS. We're just getting there. So the GFS is the global model, one of a few global models, and this run is just coming out. I'll remove, we can keep that panel on. Let's get rid of the others and me, just so that we can take a look at this now over the coming hours. It's the one that we always use on our tropical weather bulletins, not really because of favoritism, but it's just because it's the only one that our software supports. And I'll show all of the models whilst we're here though. Now then, brand new model run. What does it have? It initialized the storm at 943 millibars, which is a little bit high now, and then it strengthens a little bit more to 939 in the next 12 hours, and then after that it starts to weaken, and it does do a little bit of a stall there, just off the northern tip of Luzon, and then more wobbling, almost reminds me of an old telephone cord. Wobbling around, and then it does graze the west coast of Taiwan, still strong, and then it does lose a lot of intensity as a result, getting very close to that. Still in the 970s at its Chinese landfall though, and that is closer to Taiwan than the JTWC had, and they have the storm around about the same intensity. So if it did move further west, I'm not so convinced that the JTW that it would be as low as what they're forecasting. After that, it moves northwards. The low pressure system is traceable just west of Shanghai. Could still get storm force winds there. And then the next typhoon takes center stage. Look at that, very deep. Into the 940s, into the East China Sea. Now 939 there again, same intensity in pressure. And that's the end of the loop at the moment. So it does look like the next system will be something to watch as well, absolutely. European model, you saw it before, but just another view of that model. Well, we didn't see it for Doksuri. There it is. Initializes it way too high, of course. ECMWF has a lot of weakening in strengthening in relative terms, though, and actually has the storm peaking within 15 hours of its Chinese landfall, which goes very much at odds with the JTWC's forecast. Then that next system that Alex showed us goes through Okinawa and then into eastern China with a pressure in the 980s. CMC can be useful sometimes. Initializes it way too high though again, but in relative terms it doesn't get any stronger. And it actually hugs the east coast of Taiwan, moves over the island pretty much, and then into China. Then this next system, CMC, really does up as well, makes that one very strong. And then some more systems behind it, but that's the CMC model, and it's got a rep for doing that. And the icon. Look at the icon right now, another one that comes out early. So we've already got the 18Z run for that one. And another model that shows strengthening after making its closest pass to the Philippines. And that one has its peak intensity of 948. And that is only 12 hours before its Chinese landfall. So I know Ethan earlier on in the storm's life was skeptical that it could weaken so much, and some models now potentially agreeing. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that. No. Ethan's content, I think. We got a few more visible images appearing of the storm now. It's looking very good as we start to look at those first visibles of the day. And its movement, well, just about northwestwards there. It's quite a slow loop, that one. So it's hard to determine a motion on that particular imagery. Yep.
I would want to talk about, since we're a little quiet of words,
Oh, yeah.
shall we say. Yesterday, when we saw it, going west, and then we started to see it stop moving, and we were in that debate stage. Was it stalling? Was it not? It looks like it hit pretty much a brick wall, and then it was forced north. Eventually, when something started pushing it north. So it was stalled there for a little bit.
Yeah, thankfully that westward motion didn't continue, and it continues northwestwards now, and it looks to me as though it will probably... I think the main landfall potential point would be Babayan Island.
Yep.
And I think that's still true right now. Let's get some more questions. Kyle says, will it be retired? Well, it's a bit early for that. It's not hit yet. Not Mr. Popular says, any of you surprised that Doksuri reached Super Typhoon status, or are we not surprised at all? That they're curious now.
I'm not too surprised.
Yeah, me neither. It's already a super typhoon now. Well, we have it as 150 miles an hour.
Yes, it is a little early in the season, but I'm not too surprised.
Yeah.
No, not massively. I didn't predict it at first, but it would have been within the... If you had a cone of uncertainty for strength, then you would put 150 miles an hour in that at the earlier, like yesterday, or earlier. More questions. What do we think the chances... Another chance about retirement? What do you think the chances of retirement are next year for the season? For the Storm? I'm confused. I think that's the same question.
Same question, I think.
I'm not really in the business of talking about retiring storms before they've happened.
After the fact, we'll come back to that question.
And is it possible for this to become a Category 5? It certainly is at this point.
Yes.
I think it's probably
as long as it doesn't collapse its eye fully.
Keep watching that imagery on the top right there. The longer it has a red ring, the more likely it could get to Category 5 status there.
That northwestern side does look a bit thin, though.
I think it's
on
getting
the cusp.
I think it's getting a bit larger again, actually.
Is that because of like dry air or something like that?
Wind shear.
Oh, okay.
Maybe dry air as well.
Hold on, let me confirm that. Maybe a pinch.
Kimmy says that Super Typhoon Doksuri really reminds them of Typhoon Zeb in 1998.
Not familiar with that one.
A very strong Category 5 storm. It ended up piling into the Philippines, though. This one won't be making as direct an impact there.
Thank God.
It doesn't look as good as Zeb yet, but it's not too... I can see where the comparison comes from.
Nathan?
Yeah.
Oh, Babs.
The eye kind of looks like a triangle now.
A triangle? Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a rounded triangle going on.
I have a suspicion that it might be going under an eye wall replacement, which is probably for the better.
You think it's starting now?
It could be starting now, or a semi one, as we've seen in the past, where it... I call it a semi eye wall replacement, that it holds its strength the whole time and sometimes even gets stronger.
Yeah.
I remember it distinctly with Goni. It kept happening the whole time. It would get a little... It was hard to tell if it was eye wall replacement or not. But there were some parts that, yes, the eye was a little wonky on one side, so it was like... hard to say.
I'm just trying to... Our website still has the shear maps, don't they?
Maybe.
I'm trying to find that because someone was asking about how much wind shear is there. And
That would be a fantastic question.
it is a... In fact, yes, we do have a wind shear map. Here is a current wind shear map from the Force 13 website, and you can... I don't think you can get there through the interface. I've just gone through, well, I know the direct link to get there, so that's a wind shear map right now, and it is depicting 20 to 30 knots of wind shear, particularly on the northwest side, so it's quite a lot actually.
Eek.
So it's no wonder it's looking like it does.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's the weakening factor that as it gets further north.
Land
Or the thing that could
interaction...
yes, that, but
No. Well, what was it that the JTWC said again? They said something else was there.
I love how someone in chat now says definitely not Cat 5. Hey, Cat 5.
Why not? What, right now?
At least right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot worse looking Cat 5s in the past.
Yeah,
Just
so
looking back through the archives.
Well, yeah. So JTWC said, oh, I'm on the wrong button now, the wrong page now. Right. Yeah. So they said diminishing outflow ahead of a mid-latitude trough will further weaken the system after the land. So basically, it will be a 3-hit blow for this storm. The first blow will be its land interaction, followed by another punch with its decreasing outflow, and then the knockout blow, its final landfall into China and increasing wind shear.
Also, now it seems like that shear is literally on the eye wall's doorstep.
Yeah, it sure
on
is.
infrared. Not a lot of convection with that main convection around the eye wall, which is the storm is trying to do get every living ounce on that eye wall.
That is interesting, actually. Let's try and get some better visible.
But
actually,
if shear completely comes in contact with it, it will probably have to go under an eye wall replacement if it's not already.
See if we can get.
So if it breaks through enough to damage the whole circulation.
So there's an image, and you can see a sizable gap where my mouse is pointing there, and that's a big absence of convection, which has been. I mean, you can see the actual spiral band, and it is pushed much further inwards than where it ought to be because wind shear is buffeting it.
Yeah.
All of that area there. And as a result, the storm on its northwestern side looking quite a bit lopsided at this point. When you zoom out and look at it.
A lot lower cloud tops on that northern side.
But nonetheless, it is still staying at its intensity, which we put down right now is 150 miles per hour. That's 240 kilometers per hour sustained winds. Very powerful. First visibles as well on one of our other sources here, and you can see just how good that one looks again.
You want to see a comparison, Nathan, for the loop on my screen?
Wow, look at that change.
So it has convection here, still a fair amount on the top half. We go over here, it's starting to lose it over here, and possibly over here. It's fading.
It really is. And
If it honestly at this point it could shear off the whole top side, and honestly that's very possible.
Another telltale sign is that it's increasing on the opposing side to compensate.
You have some convection pop-ups, which might block some shear temporarily, but
maybe
not enough. It will probably barely hold it. Those will die off.
Up to 30 knots of wind shear right now. More comments. Will this be a historic landfall, or did typhoons like Doksuri make the same landfall? Well, it is where it is right now is absolutely the cyclone capital of the world. Off the east coast of the Philippines is the most common typhoon or cyclone lane in the world. So strong landfalls have always occurred in the northern Philippines, much more often than people might think. The Philippines, I think, gets a Category 5 landfall once every 4 or 5 years on average, if I remember rightly, or maybe more often than that. And the northern islands up there have had their fair share of activity as well. I think most people's go-to comparison would be Typhoon Meranti in 2016, very powerful Category 5 that roared through that area. You might also remember Typhoon Usagi in 2013, which moved through that strait as well. It was a Cat 5 slightly before reaching that area. Of course, we have Meggy, which made landfall in 2010 in I think it was Cagayan, maybe a bit further south in Isabela province, as a 185 mile per hour Category 5 storm, one of the strongest landfalls in that area. And of course, plenty further south, as I mentioned earlier, Typhoon Nul 2015 made a Category 5 landfall on the northeastern tip near Santa Ana. So the list goes on.
You see in this last 2-hour loop here, that eye just keeps continuously shrinking. So that's something that usually happens when there's about to be an eye wall replacement.
And whilst they've got me on the subject, just a little bit more trivia. If you want to take a little guess, Daniel, or Ethan, or anyone. How many Western Pacific cyclones have passed within 100 nautical miles of the Batanes Islands since naming began?
A lot.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Quite a few.
So naming started in like 1944.
50s. I would have to say
At least more than 500.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Okay, well,
We only
not
average
sure.
about 25 a year
Oh,
across the whole basin.
maybe. Well,
Well, anyway, it's 364.
I was gonna go with 200 or 300 in my head. It's like 250. I was like saying there's probably 1 to 3 each year.
And how many passed within the Batanes Islands, 100 nautical miles, as a Category 4 or 5?
Oh my.
oh,
Let's see.
all right.
Maybe 50 to 100.
It's
Yeah.
50. 50 of them.
Oh,
That's quite a lot. And if you think about that, that's nearly one a year.
Well, at least on one of my guesses, I'm
Yeah,
on the bullseye.
nearly one a year. But if I was to
Daniel.
pick out an analog for this right now, I'm not sure. Track-wise, no, not even that. I'm a
Was
bit
this
stumped.
turning into a content guess the storm?
No, I'm just trying to. I mean, Namadol isn't too bad a comparison, I suppose.
What's the closest storm?
I'm talking about
to
that a few
this?
times. There's quite a few that pass close to the storm's current position as a strong storm, of course. Where it is right now, the closest one moving in its current direction is probably Chanthu in 2021. Which, of course, recurved before
Yeah.
reaching Taiwan. It still affected Taiwan, but it missed China completely. Anyway, back to the imagery, and we'll take more questions as and when, and we'll do some more now. Emrissa05 says, will the wind shear decrease or increase as it gets closer to China or the Philippines. I'm not sure about at the moment, but when it gets towards China, it will increase. Now, maybe the models are seeing a decrease in wind shear after it passes Luzon, and one or two of them now suggesting a bit more strengthening again for that reason. But
Yeah,
that's
I'm
speculation.
just looking at an archive of that storm that you just mentioned. Yeah,
Chantley?
that's odd. Yeah, it's oddly similar.
Yeah, not too long ago either.
Yeah.
And is it possible for the Philippines to experience typhoon conditions? Unfortunately, we've not received any wind speed probability graphics, but I would expect the islands, of course, I think will absolutely get typhoon conditions. Santa Ana and the Cagayan Valley region, I would say it's probably about a 50-50, maybe a little bit more than the 50-50 for Santa Ana though. So I would expect typhoon conditions for that area, that northeastern tip, definitely. So yes is the short answer. And do we think this storm will make landfall on the Batanes Islands, says Lee Hurricane? I think it will pass a little south of there, actually.
We're just gonna like scrape like maybe the tip of it. Or
Well,
some part of the island.
this forecast cone is on my screen, Nathan.
You've produced a cone.
Once
All right,
again.
then let's see
Once
Ethan's
again.
take
Oh, I don't know, Ethan. It looks like you've been playing Terraria for 6
on the
hours.
forecast then. So, signal 3 warnings, as you can see in those outlines, and an interesting looking cone, which, if I'm not mistaken, is probably quite similar to JTWC there.
Yeah, I think that JTWC are pretty good on the money right now whenever it comes to this storm. Regarding intensity, I do think that it could intensify a little bit over the next 12 to 24 hours. We'll have to see if it reaches Category 5 status. I don't think it will, personally. I think it will get close if it does continue to intensify. But there are some indications that it might be near peak intensity now. We'll have to wait and see, though. There is still 12 to 24 hours for the storm to intensify. We'll have to wait and see. But you can see that China landfall has actually had the intensity forecast remain about the same for the landfall intensity in China as 24 hours ago.
Did you hear what we were saying earlier when I was looking at some of the models? ECMWF and CMC, I think it was, aren't as sure that the storm will weaken anywhere near what is forecasted before the China landfall.
Yeah, I have seen that, but it is a pretty low confidence situation as things stand with me right now, because the higher resolution models such as the HWRF and its lookalike models, I think, have a good grasp on the storm's intensity, and they show weakening after
Right.
it moved to the Philippine Islands. And those models are much higher resolution compared to the Euro and the CMC, which are not really that high a resolution. So something tells me that they might not be capturing the true intensity accurately.
Well, we haven't actually looked at those ones, so let's actually do that now, unless you have anything else to add there.
Nope. But the day 5 point has been considerably expanded northward and is now a remnant low. So the Doksuri should be dead pretty by the end of this week.
Sounds about right. All right, then here's the HWRF model, and we'll just have to remove some of our other views. I'm off the screen again there. So by this point on the 12Z HWRF, we don't have 18Z yet. It has the storm at 928 millibars and winds of 145 miles per hour there, which is interesting. Then gradual strengthening continues and stops. Actually, it starts to weaken there by the time we get to early afternoon local time, and then it rounds that corner, and then it goes through the Babian Island group, the Caliana Island group. Still is a very strong storm. I would still say that's a category 4, and then it affects the Batanes as well. Actually, it gets it tries to do a whistle-stop tour of all islands there, according to the HWRF model. And then it does shoot northwards much more than the other models are saying, apart from the Icon, I think it was, and takes it along the east side initially of Taiwan, through the southern part of the island, over some very high mountains, which will weaken the storm dramatically, but will cause extreme rainfall totals over Taiwan. And that means that it's hardly a typhoon, probably a tropical storm there, by the time it makes its final landfall in eastern China. And off it goes. So it weakens there because it strikes Taiwan directly. If it didn't, I don't know how strong it might have made it. HMON, let's have a look. No, we don't have HMON. That's Atlantic only, isn't it?
Oh, Nathan.
HAFS, unless it's urgent.
Nathan.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the HAFSA parent model.
Right.
And apparently shows that it could have a peak of 919 millibars.
Yeah, there it is.
Max wind of 116.5 knots. Don't know how that works, but it does pass through the Philippine Islands and just passes.
Yep, well,
through
there
the
it is
tip
there.
of Taiwan.
Probably still a strong Cat 4 there.
Yes,
Borderline Category 5 at peak.
However, it says the max wind here is 81.2 knots. I don't know how that works, but
No.
it makes landfall on China, southern China.
All right, yeah, this
is 91W down here.
Just a minute. There it is, look. That's a landfall at 935 millibars in China, and that is if it misses Taiwan. I think the consensus is getting stronger that if it doesn't get too close to Taiwan, then we could be looking at a very strong landfall still in China. Yes, it says 84 knots on that run, but I don't think they're grasping it properly. Look at pressure.
Very warm waters that whole way there.
You look at pressure more than you look at winds on these, I'd say, and 935 millibars would still be probably a Category 4. So
yeah, I'd say like maybe 145, 150.
Maybe a bit
The
less.
only
Maybe
the
a
only
little
thing
lower.
that's unfavorable for this system is the shear that I'm still seeing. That will probably still be there when it gets there. Maybe a little weaker though.
So right here, it's probably likely around 155 miles per hour, but yeah.
Yeah, we were just showing that one ourselves too. So the storm getting fairly close to reaching land now. Every so often you see distances flash up on the bottom of the screen. Let's give you a little update on those distances though. Right now it is 250 kilometers from Palanan, and it is 299 kilometers from Santa Ana. Its current motion, as far as we can determine right now, is, just finding that info, northwest, or yeah, still northwest there at 10 miles per hour. That's 16 kilometers per hour. So at this rate it would make its closest approach to Santa Ana in about probably 18 hours, but I think it will speed up a bit before then. Just looking at the possibly not a wise thing to do, but the interpolated ATCF is actually just crossed into the Category 5 range. I didn't say anything. Let's check now though the ADT values as well. Sim's ADT at the moment is running with 127 knots, which is a little bit lower than what we have right now at 150 miles per hour. And NOAA ADT, just going to check that, probably will say the same, but sometimes they can differ a little bit. It is running with the same 127 knots, 926 millibars. So we expect that they'll probably stick with 150 miles per hour if there was to be a new update now. There isn't, of course, but that's the intensity that we're currently running at, 150 miles per hour and a pressure of 930 millibars. Back to some more rapid scan imagery of the storm as we put some of our graphics back up again. The top left shows you the live warnings from Pegasa. Signal 3 in effect for the Babian group of islands, for most of Cagayan province, northernmost part of coastal Isabela, and northern Apayao province as well. The rapid scan is showing that the ice still looks pretty good. You can see right down into it, although when you look towards the northwest, the wind shear factor is quite clear there, with a big gap where a spiral band should be, and instead that band has been shunted in towards the central core of the storm.
Yep.
Let's get some other imagery now. What should we go to?
Nathan, people in the
few
chat
earlier.
are
Yeah.
concerned about that invest in the North Indian Ocean.
Well, it was invested earlier today. Invest 94B.
Not gonna become anything.
It's a system that has a bit of rotation about it.
Oh,
If it did
I have it pulled up.
form, oh, thank you. If it did form, it would be very short-lived. There it is. It
Little baby. You can see the rotation.
might be
low.
multiple rotations forming there.
Yeah.
So it's certainly
Yeah.
not a tropical cyclone at this juncture.
nope. An exposed LLC or something. Wait, is there even an LLC?
It's
Not
being
really.
cheered.
Yeah, I can see like right there.
Yeah, I don't think this thing's gonna form, and if it
It is
somehow
not.
does, it's gonna, probably at max, be a depression.
Yeah, and it goes over land, survives there for like over a week.
Ah,
A lot of rain, though.
well, it certainly looks sheared, and I can show you a shear map, and it is quite high. It's about 40 to 50 knots around
Yeah, that's
the
not surviving.
system, so it's going to be a serious struggle for that one.
You can see
No
the
way. It's gonna
thunderstorm.
form.
Can actually visibly see the thunderstorm clouds that kind of just look
Mm-hmm.
like wildfires burning.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, but it's because they're being blown off. Towards,
So
well, God knows where.
that's our take on that one for the time being. But we're happy to take more questions. We'll get some more now. I think we've answered a lot of these. How similar is Typhoon Doksuri to Typhoon Gilda or Nanmadol? Now, I'll have to have a refresher on Gilda, but I looked back at Nanmadol a few minutes ago, and it's a little bit like Nanmadol, but it won't be. It's going to have a more direct track that Nanmadol had. Nanmadol actually made landfall both on Luzon and Taiwan. Much weaker by the time it got to Taiwan. This storm shouldn't make landfall on the mainland Philippines. It would be very unlikely. It could still deliver typhoon force winds there though, and it will thread through the gap. It still might strike Taiwan directly. We saw some of the models, but the general consensus is that it won't directly hit either, and keep a fair bit of strength into China. So it's sort of similar but not to Nanmadol. More direct in track, and I don't at the moment remember Gilda. Sounds like one of the 70s storms, or maybe even 60s. And how big is Doksuri's wind field? Another one I'm going to have to take a look at. Well, JTWC have the numbers that they're going with. They have quite a big tropical storm wind field, 255 nautical miles off to the northeast, 240 miles southeast, 190 southwest, and 210 northwest. We can put a visual perspective on that as we look at the Sims ADT, which isn't the same numbers as the JWC, but gives you a little bit of an idea of what the wind field profile might look like. There it is. And the blue line there, that is tropical storm force winds. The green is 50 knot winds, and the red there is typhoon conditions. So the typhoon conditions do spill over a little bit further towards the west, although JTWC's numbers are a little bit higher than that. In all categories, actually, because this graphic is depicting the northeast quadrant being only 170 nautical miles. JWC had 250, was it? So much larger. And it had the southwest at 190. This one depicts 125. So, but by both analyses, tropical storm force winds should be being felt along the east coast of Isabella and Cagayan, particularly the Signal 3 warning zones. They should be getting tropical storm force winds right now, and possibly further in than that as well.
Yep.
Alright, we're into our second hour of coverage. This is Force 13 Live. My name's Nathan Foy, and I'm joined by my team, consisting of Dino, Daniel, Alex, and Ethan. Nice to have you all on board once again. We are simulcasting on 3 different platforms on this stream. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, so you can get your messages in on all of those. I'm monitoring YouTube the most. That's where we have most of our base. That's where most of the comments come in, to be fair. I know that someone on Facebook there says, thanks for sharing. Thank you for watching. And we'll get some more comments and questions as much as we can fit in here between any further updates.
Yeah, Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
Currently unvisible on like a wide shot. This storm looks like it has a pinhole eye.
Oh, man.
A very small eye. If you cut back to my thing, and you can see it right at the end of the loop. It's getting a little tiny.
A ragged eye.
And yet it's still about 25 miles.
Also, for people watching, an eye wall replacement cycling can also be a bad thing for anybody in the path, because the wind field will expand.
Yeah.
Once it's done.
It certainly does. A moment of lovely in our chat right now. Chat modding. Appreciate your work. This is my 10th year in the Philippines, but I haven't seen any rain like today as it is today. And you've seen nothing at a distance of 20 meters anymore. Visibility. And the rain overnight was insane.
That's a typhoon for you.
Well, that's from someone who's been going through typhoons for 10 years, though. Sounds like a lot of rain. Well, this is going to produce a lot of rain. We'll get the new 18Z GFS on our proper graphics when they come out in about 15 minutes, and we'll show you the rainfall projections as well. Xavier Nostalgia says, what do you think about the other Atlantic disturbance forming by the southeast US? I saw the NHC designated that, and I've no idea why.
Wait, what were we talking about? Sorry. I stepped
Wait,
away for a
what?
second.
Hold on. There
You don't
was
know
a...
this? National Hurricane Center designated a new system near the...
The Carolinas?
Yeah.
Oh, that
Southern
one?
Carolina to Florida. I looked at that and I was like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's 0% chance, why even bother, like, marking it, dude?
It's like a little low, probably at max. Let me see if I can, just
There
go
it is.
over to
1%
the...
chance
We got it.
formation right there.
There it is. 0% chance next 48 hours. 20% next 7 days. I don't know why, but who knows?
It's like,
I think
is it...
NHC might
Which
be on
one
something.
is it? What? Which one is it? Is it this thing or is that thing?
It might be something that isn't there yet.
Imagine, imagine predicting something that's not there yet.
Well,
It's
well,
like
we
being
do.
naming on a whole nother level.
We do. No, we do that though.
Well-
Agencies do that and have done that, and so do we.
Yeah, but
Well, at least we have a cloud.
yeah.
But looking at their discussion, it is actually already active. It's a weak trough of low pressure. So it's in the middle
Yeah.
of your image there. Oh no, actually, it's the bit they've marked is that little burst to the east of that other burst.
This thing?
No, it's
Or
to the
that-
east of that. Yes, that thing there.
That thing?
They've
That
marked that.
thing,
Yeah.
it's just a cloud. If that goes over like land, you're just gonna get cloudy skies. maybe like one drop of rain.
I don't know. Ethan, you want to shed any light on this?
Yeah, Ethan's the model expert here, but he's been gone for at least a good 45 minutes or
Is he
something.
not with us right now? Oh, that's a shame.
Oh, where's the Ethan?
Nothing. A little baby thing that kind of is there. Like right here.
It's
That's
just some rain, just some light rain near Florida.
Well, I hope you don't
Thunderstorms.
have to. I hope you don't have to
Yeah.
eat your words down the line, but it doesn't look very promising for that.
Nam 3 kilometer.
Oh yeah, well if it's not on Nam 3 kilometer, then it won't happen.
I don't see it. Well, this only goes out so far.
New image here of the storm and that closing in eye. Maybe it's a shoring out of its eye wall properly though. I mean, it still looks very good, but what you will see there on that image more than anything is that a little bit of an unnatural line being cut off the northwestern side. It's not very round. It's a jagged edge, and that's all thanks. It's the visual evidence there of very strong wind shear that's affecting this storm right now, up to 30
Or
knots.
shall we say, decently strong.
Up to 30 knots. Storms have been ripped apart from 30 knots before.
Yes. At least this thing's not going through what that poor Invest is going through.
But you look at that imagery and view those pink areas wrapping round counterclockwise, entering that shear zone. So I think the next hour there might be interesting to watch.
It might survive for this dark phase.
Yeah, but it's in aerial coverage, those minus 70s have grown on that northwestern side, and so I would think that there could still be chance for more strengthening. But it is a shrinking eye, and it does sort of have the feel as though an eye wall replacement cycle might happen within 12 hours.
It's also giving us a nice smiley face.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Let's see
It's
if we
only
can get
Photoshop in
some
the eye.
more
on there.
questions right now. So we just answered that one. Kyle says, when do you think the first major hurricane will form in the Atlantic?
In October.
That would be nice if we had to wait all the way.
September.
Or maybe not have one at all. That would be excellent. 2013,
Yeah.
anyone?
Strongest one was going to be a Cat 2 with like winds of 100. It just barely scrapes Cat 2 status, and then it just
Well,
dies.
In 2013, we didn't even get a Category 2, so...
Yeah, no, we're gonna have a C. We're gonna have a Cat 1 that starts off way up north, and it just becomes a subtropical storm once it hits Category 1 status. But then becomes a subtropical storm after, and it just dies. That would be awesome. Also,
And-
far ends here.
And we'll talk to Fine in a moment. NJ Fan says, what are the chances of Doksuri becoming a Category 5? I would say they're there.
Very slight.
A little bit, just slight. And
Yeah.
what's the CDPS for Doksuri? Well, we don't have the CDPS anymore, but if I was to hazard a guess, I would probably put it at about... There's some big potential impacts over Taiwan. So...
Eight.
By the way,
Yeah.
for the question
Probably a
of
6 at
what
least.
for the percentage, I would give it for Cat 5,
Yeah.
30 to 40.
30 to 40,
Yeah.
a little high. I'd probably go
Probably just
15 to
organized
20.
more. Like the northwestern side is a bit thin on the
15 to
satellite
20.
imagery.
It is getting a lot more convection, though.
Yeah.
Swinging around, though.
Noah says, are we confident that we're seeing an increase in intensities of hurricanes and typhoons historically? Which is an interesting question. And I'm not really sure. It's difficult.
It might be. Well, temperatures are definitely rising. We all know this.
Yeah.
Sometimes
so,
when there's more storms,
yeah, more
a lot of them are weaker, and that could actually bring down the average in terms of strength.
Yes. You can have more storms, maybe not stronger intensity.
I don't know. It's
Which I prefer more storms but less strong storms.
I suppose. I need to do more research on that. I did start some research in those kinds of things. I don't think ACE has changed very much. I think that's the only thing I managed to find out so far. Is there any chance that Doksuri reached Cat 5? We're talking about that. But thanks for your comment, Janice. Definitely a chance there. Any pressure systems? Oh, I've just lost that. YouTube scrolled down on me there. Thanks. Oh, I've lost it. Alright, we'll start here. Tate says that the northwest quadrant is rapidly strengthening. It's bursting up a little bit. I don't know what to make of it right now. But I would be cautious with anything that we say in the next hour or two.
Oh, don't talk at all.
Don't talk at all. Yes. Hurricane Altony Bronze says, did we use Flight Simulator on our extra channel yesterday during Typhoon Doksuri? Yes, and we're doing it again tonight at the same time. For those who are interested in that, we'll be doing a virtual flight into the storm. We try and make it as authentic as we can. Of course, the simulator itself has its limitations. Yesterday, in the simulation, it got 86 knot wind gusts and a sustained wind of 80 knots and a pressure of 980. So that would be a high-end Category 1 when it was actually a high-end Category 3. So it's not the best, but it's a far cry from where we were in 10 years ago and more on Flight Simulator. I remember when Hurricane Rick was active in 2009 and was a Category 5 in the Eastern Pacific, and I went on trusty Microsoft Flight Simulator X and flew out there from Manzanillo into the storm. Well, supposedly, but it was clear skies, so there was no storm. So it's a far cry from where we used to be on that simulation. Does it have any useful credibility or anything like that to it? I'm not really sure. Does it serve as perhaps a little bit of educational purpose of what typhoons tend to look like? I think it can be quite accurate at times as to what the eye of a storm can look like. I think it did a pretty good job yesterday visually.
Yes.
Yeah. If it's all about visuals, then I think it does a pretty good job.
Yeah. It could be also great simulation for recon reconnaissance for people that are playing into getting into that realm.
Annual.
It has to get much better for it to be viable for a recon training of any standard.
Well, we have the 2024 version. We'll see how that
supposedly, does. Yeah. LT Raiko says, thoughts on the future of 91W? Well, let's throw Farhan in the deep end and say hello, and your thoughts on that?
Well, quite a bit of a jump in escalation now, do you? Asking me that right away. Well,
Yep.
well, before I get to that, I just have to say I am quite surprised that Doksuri has managed to become well, not quite eye candy, but it certainly looked better from what it was yesterday. But when it comes to 91W, well, as long as Doksuri didn't suck up the favorable environment too much, I think it does have a good chance of uh, becoming quite powerful also. And as was discussed yesterday, it's going to be interesting how Doksuri is going to be a threat to southern Taiwan, while NT1W looks to be a threat to northern Taiwan.
Yeah.
But neither of them actually making landfall by most accounts, which is interesting. But yeah, that's all I have to say regarding that, really.
Tell us about Doksuri then and its appearance, what you make of it. Is it successfully fighting off this wind shear right now?
Well, I mean, the fact that it has managed to become, well, by our estimates anyway, become a super typhoon. I think it can be said that it has been pretty successful indeed. It's not exactly the most successful because, as we can see here, the northwestern quadrant is quite weak in comparison to the other quadrants. However, all things considered, and especially if we remember back to how relatively ugly it looked yesterday at this time of day, it is quite a remarkable achievement. Of course, how that would relate to impacts remains to be seen as it continues to move closer to northern Luzon, although more pertinently is the Batanes Islands, which people often forget, but there are people there too. Yes, they are no stranger to storm like this, but it's still going to be potentially quite destructive, and they're going to be right in the middle of it. As for the northern tip of northern Luzon, might get the eye wall, but they wouldn't exactly get in the eye, while some of the islands in there, the Batanes Islands, might actually come inside of the eye, maybe even a landfall by any chance. We will see about that.
Well, the Batanes Islands are the ones right up there, but the ones that feel really forgotten right now are the Babayan group of islands, which are the ones on the right hand side of that cluster just north of the tip of Luzon. And it could well be Babayan Island itself, the northernmost of that chain, that I would say has the highest chance of getting an eye pass, and some models have projected that. It's sort of the triangular shaped island there, right next to that grid line, if you can see it on that map. Towards the north. So all of those islands, though, absolutely. Typhoon conditions, I would say, are very likely for all of those islands and the northeastern tip of Cagayan. And to reiterate the current warnings right now, Signal 3 warnings, as you can see on the top left side of the screen. And we'll just show you the Pagasa webpage right now. This was the 5 a.m. advisory showing the cone there. That's a 2 a.m. cone, which you can see some of it. They project a super typhoon shortly, although they don't have it at the moment. In fact, what wind speed do they have for it right now? They have it moving west-northwestward, interestingly, at 15 kilometers per hour. And maximum sustained winds of 175 kilometers per hour near the center and gusts of up to 215. I can tell you it's much stronger than that. It's got sustained winds of about 240 kilometers per hour, I would say. So, Signal 3 warnings there. Babayan Islands, northern and eastern portions of mainland Cagayan, northeastern portion of Isabela, and the northern portion of Apayao. Signal 2 warnings for the Batanes Islands, the rest of mainland Cagayan, the rest of Isabela, Quirino, the northern portion of Nueva Vizcaya, the rest of Apayao, Kalinga, Abra, Mountain Province, Ifugao, the northern portion of Benguet, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, and the northern and central portion of Aurora. Signal 1 warning for all of these areas, pretty much the rest of Luzon in its entirety, and for most of the island of Samar, and that is pretty much everything there. That also includes part of Masbate, and I think, does it still include Eastern Romblon. It did at one point, but actually I don't think it does anymore. Just show you. Yep, so they're not under any warnings anymore. Actually, yeah. It's no longer most of Samar, it's just pretty much the northern half of Samar there. So that's the warning map in full from Pagasa at this hour. Feel free to send in more comments and questions live on the air. We're here for another 40 minutes. Those on our YouTube channel will then be redirected back to our automated stream, which is running 24/7 during the life of this storm on the Force 13 YouTube channel. And in just over an hour, we'll be doing a virtual flight on the Force 13 Extra channel for those who are intrigued by that one. Also, if you've got any observations that you'd like to offer to us from where you are right now, like a moment of lovely earlier on saying that the rain was like nothing they'd ever witnessed in 10 years, then feel free to send those in as well if it's safe to do so. Right, Kimmy says, has Typhoon Doksuri undergone eyewall replacement cycle? Nope, not at this moment. And quite a few questions about this Atlantic AOI.
Oh my god.
Whether we think it will form.
Of course.
But let's not today.
No. No.
And Kyle says, what's the maximum amount of shear possible anywhere? I've seen 100 knot wind shear before in winter.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you can have 100 knot wind shear.
I actually. What's the like highest, like realistically possible?
Well, the scale that we have here,
The scale for
the-
wind shear?
the color scale on the wind shear map goes up to 100 knots, and that's wide.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen that happen once or twice before.
Dang, Nathan.
But I think, gee, I'm not sure. Does the jet stream count?
I mean,
I think that makes the storm stronger.
well, we're not talking a Sandy over here.
No.
I know, but like jet interactions and stuff, because it's happened before.
But I'm sure I've seen it in wintertime when it gets towards the tropical to mid latitudes. You can get really high wind shear values. This graphic shows the current wind shear though near Typhoon Doksuri, generally northwestwards, but all around the storm, wind shear values of 20 to possibly near 30 knots, which is quite obvious when we've seen how the storm's been struggling. But I think it's overcoming this current wind shear belt right now.
Yeah, and it has a nice skull face right now.
Oh no.
God, Daniel.
I thought we promised not to do that.
Yeah, come on, Daniel.
Well, yeah. We made promise. To the storm made a promise to not do that, but it broke the promise.
Oh my God, Daniel.
Beef Plays says it's raining right now in Abra, but it's not as hard. But I feel like it will rain harder later on today as the storm gets closer to Santa Ana, Cagayan. So thank you for that. Will
Time for
tropical
me
storm
to check
force...
when ISS flies over.
Yeah, will tropical storm force winds extend to South Korea? It won't. I don't think it will get that far. But at one point there was a few runs from the models that suggested it might have done that. It might be able to do that. Let's see what else we've got right now. What is the probability that it makes landfall on Luzon? I mean, it's relatively low now as we look at the storm's current position. It's starting to get just a little bit. It's on the same latitude right now as central Cagayan, so I really don't see it actually making landfall there now. But the small islands to the north, those chances are absolutely there.
Of course, when talking about small islands, it is really a bit of a shot in the dark, them being so small. It really does like throwing a dart into a board and hoping to hit a bullseye. You really have to be really precise. and so it's a bit uncertain really, but they certainly will be quite heavily affected regardless of landfall or not.
Alright, it's very nearly model time, where we'll take a look at the GFS model, the 18Z, across the whole world. And that might show up a few interesting things. We'll include silly range as well.
Uh-oh.
I know. We won't spend too much time on that. Do we think that this typhoon season is similar to the 1990s typhoon seasons? Still early on in the season, but any comment on that?
I don't know much about the 1990s.
No, not really. As
I think
someone
the
that
only
is
storm
somewhat
from the
knowledgeable,
1990s was
not quite. And as you said, it's a bit early to make that judgment. If this is October, November, then yeah, we can start discussing that for real. Right now, though, no, not really. But we'll see. It is El Nino after all.
And of course, the 90s had different periods as well. We had the very busy season of 1994. We had 1991, which was busy as well. We had 1997, of course, with its record Category 5.
Of course, legendary season, that
We
one.
had 1998
Nah.
with its near record late start.
and then
complete
1999, most
And-
boring season
Yeah,
on
probably
record.
is. To be 98. 98 did have a few strong storms. So did 99 actually, but overall, those 2 years were very quiet.
99 didn't really have anything, to be honest. It had like 5 typhoons or something like that.
And Typhoon Bart, Category 5.
No, it's a 4.
5.
4.
Definitely 5.
Nathan, that's a
5.
4.
It's certainly a
Screw you, Daniel.
Oh, dear.
Always a debate for storm in this basin since 1987. There will always be debates like that.
Yeah. How fast is Typhoon Doksuri moving now compared to yesterday's live update? Well, yesterday it was moving west at about, was it 2 or 3 miles per hour for a bit? And now it's moving northwest at about, I think it was 10 miles an hour, we said earlier. So it's quite different. Certainly faster. And probably a bit faster tomorrow as well.
Can I say about
Yeah.
Doksuri's movement? Currently, Doksuri was located near the head of Philippines, in which some portions of Doksuri was brushing through the top island of Philippines. In other words, there may be heavy rainfall and gusty winds around this top head of the upper island of Philippines. I saw this from Zoom.earth.
Right. Okay. Ender Warden says, why does the pressure in storms in the North Atlantic generally higher than those in the Western Pacific? And it's all down to size. Much larger basin, the Western Ocean, the Western Pacific. Much larger storms as a result. And larger storms almost always yield lower pressures.
Although when it comes to like agencies, official agency making pressure estimate, I think the National Hurricane Center is much more willing to make low estimate because of recon. Because as I'm sure all of you are already tired of that point being made now, there's no substantial recon anymore here in the Western Pacific, and so agencies such as GTWC and GMA are usually less willing to make such ballsy low pressure estimate because they simply don't have such direct measurement to do so, at least in real time anyway. In post-analysis, that's a different story.
Yeah. Alright, we're still looking at Typhoon Doksuri right now as it slowly gets closer to the coast of the Philippines. It looks like it will narrowly miss the northeastern tip of Luzon, but will still likely deliver typhoon force winds to those regions, and Signal 3 warnings have been hoisted. Through the Babian group of islands, that could be the worst affected area and could get the eye of the storm. The Batanes Islands will probably get the northern eye wall and possibly the strongest winds of the storm. if it deviates a little bit further north as well. So all of these areas absolutely on notice right now, as is, we haven't spoken about it much yet, the southern tip of Taiwan, which is within 48 hours now, I think, of receiving at least storm force winds, if not possibly typhoon force winds. Now, pretty soon we will have the satellite, the model for the next 16 days around the world, but at the moment it's only half loaded, so I've not been able to retrieve all of it for our viewing yet. It's nearly there now. It's done 14 days, so we may as well run with it now. So let's take a look at, and you'll see me looking up a lot here, but let's just move over here. There we go, it's much better. There is how the GFS model has initialized this storm right now, Doksuri. And as Ethan was pointing out yesterday, he was looking at the winds contained inside it. GFS almost always has a low bias in the winds it detects. It's showing there 125 miles per hour, when in reality it's really about 150. So bear that in mind as we watch this animation. What happens then on the GFS model? It first of all gets a little bit stronger there. There's 133, 134 compared to the 125 it was. If you were to do it in relative terms, just add that on to what we've currently got, that's a borderline category 5. Moving through the Babian group of islands, it moves directly over one of them, and I appreciate you can't really see it very well. Let's just circle that and move it off to... So actually it's the southeastern island there that gets the eye of the storm on that GFS model run, and then it moves northwestwards and strikes another one, that second one there, and moves onwards, probably a category 4 for both landfalls, as that would be. Interesting to see that from the GFS, because other models, so GFS takes it that way, other models have it more towards there, and some of them even take it up the coast of Taiwan for a bit, and other models still have it more straight and on through there. What happens next on the GFS with those lines superimposed? Well, it strengthens again. Look at that. Strengthens again as it moves that way. At least category 4 there. Gets too close for comfort to Taiwan, and then really gets hit badly. Shrivels up a lot, but still has typhoon force winds by the time it reaches the coast of China there. A little bit further east as to what some other models are saying, and that landfall zone is near... I'm not very good at Chinese geography, it has to be said. Probably just north of Huanzhou, and then it continues northwards inland, dies off very quickly, although still some residual tropical storm force winds here, and possibly over Shanghai, which is there. Certainly a windy occasion, and the graphics have stopped working again. Damn it. I thought we had the graphics for the long range, but we don't. We'll come back to it later. But whilst we're here, we can see the beginning of 91W forming there, a very broad system, and it does become a tropical storm in that time. Alright, Atlantic then. Anything of
Here we
note?
go.
I think there could be. Atlantic, there is another wave that moves along the main development region, and there could be a shot of it forming within 7 days. I've given that a 10% chance. Off
Not
the
very high.
off the coast of, well, NHC doesn't have it on theirs yet, and yet they've managed to mark this other thing in the Western Atlantic, which is non-existent on the GFS. So.
Oh wow, NHC is honestly on cracks. So I mean,
Eastern Pacific, nothing there. Central Pacific, nothing either. A quick look at this Indian Ocean system. Look at that. It does nearly become a tropical cyclone. Very interesting, but it does have massive wind shear decimating it at the moment. Could we have a quick look at the reflectivity to see whether it's anywhere near having a complete like eye wall or whatever, or circulation. It doesn't really. I'm not convinced by that at all, what we saw of it there. So I think we defend not marking that at the moment. It is an interesting feature, but I don't see it gaining traction. Meanwhile, look at the reflectivity on that very impressive structure of Typhoon Doksuri after it passes through the northernmost Philippine islands. GFS really giving it a round 2. Look at that. That's probably stronger than what it is right now. Compare it to right now, there it is. In fact, yeah, I would say that is stronger than it is right now. The GFS has it in about 2 days' time, so big question marks and uncertainty there as more models starting to get on board with the possibility that it could strengthen again after it passes the Philippines. We'll try and get the long range in a few minutes' time when hopefully it updates. Alright, anyone, I'll open the floor right now if any of our team members would like to point anything out right now.
I just is looking at the GFS prediction after it made its closest pass to Taiwan, saying it absolutely destroyed in the Taiwan Strait. It sort of remind me back to some historical storm that you've discussed that buck the trend. Like usually when storms went through the Taiwan Strait, they usually just shrivel up and dies, and that just reminded me of your presentation of the few cases where that hasn't been the case and how unusual that was. Just sort of reminded back to that.
It would be unusual. Let's get some more questions. I did see a few pop in there. Please tag us, by the way. Quite a few questions coming in. Might miss some. Houston, we have a problem. Says that they just started watching this channel. Nice to see you, by the way, and weather in general. Can someone explain what is up with still waiting for Hone, and do hurricanes ever form in the Central Pacific? You'd be forgiven for thinking not. Well,
Can I answer the question?
you want to answer the... Okay, then. Fine.
Okay. Hurricanes do form in the Central Pacific, and the last time we had a tropical cyclone in the Central Pacific was 2019, ending off at... What was the name we went and off at? Like...
Trying to think now.
Yeah, EMA or something like that.
Is that
And the
roughly?
joke is that it's been over like 1,000 days since the next Central Pacific cyclone has formed. So, yeah.
Yeah, 4 years pretty much now since the last Central Pacific storm. It's a very long gap. I think I recall the 1970s that we haven't seen a Central Pacific name. So for some people, I think some people made a meme out of it and has taken it well beyond how far it ought to go, and it's basically a laughing stock in the Central Pacific, waiting for the next storm, which its name will be Hone. I don't know either. Hurricane Alton Ebron says, why are tornadoes more common hurricanes than typhoons? What?
Well, if the point is trying to be made is tornadoes forming in tropical cyclone is more common in the Atlantic or inside of the Pacific, well, that's really dependent on a storm-to-storm basis, to be honest, because such events do happen in other basins such as the Western Pacific. It's just that the US is much more, how do I say this in simple terms? It's much more prevalent, much more acquainted with tornadoes, and so they are much more likely to spot and document it. Meanwhile, over here in the other side of the world, although we do know that tornadoes are a thing, they don't happen as often, and so we don't really often notice it that much in comparison to Americans. So, yeah, that's the case really when it comes down to it.
and detecting tornadoes over there is quite a bit better. I mean, I wouldn't know where to find any velocity radars in the Western Pacific at all. I don't know if they have them in well, they will, just whether it's public access in these areas. Most places
Yeah,
are.
that's the question. The militaries of the region probably have it, but they're probably not too keen on sharing it to the public, the general public.
Yeah, well, there we have it. Feel free to send in more comments and questions live on the air on 3 platforms right now, and it's nice for you to join us. All right, let's see what else we have. Well, first of all, looking at the storm once again, you can see that, to be honest with you, it's building back in really nicely on that northwestern side.
It does. It does.
So I do have significant concerns that we've not seen the end of this, although maybe a little bit more cloudiness inside the eye and a little bit ragged. So, and JTWC, if you didn't know, Farhan earlier said that an eyewall replacement cycle is likely in about 12 hours. So it is on a bit of a timer, and I think it could happen fairly soon, just as it's starting to get going again.
That is certainly an interesting scenario to see played out in the next 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah. A question there. How big is Doksuri's size? It was pretty large when we looked at it yesterday. In terms of its wind field, JTWC have it on the northeastern quadrant, extending out about 250 nautical miles. On the southwestern quadrant, it's about 210. So that has a diameter, therefore, of gale force winds of about, what would that be? Just over 450 nautical miles, which is quite a lot. That's probably close to 800 kilometers wide in terms of sustained gales. In terms of its main cloud structure, I would say probably about 1100 nautical miles in diameter. And if we talk about pretty much every cloud out there that's even loosely associated with the storm, I would put its size at about nearly 4,000 kilometers. There are some clouds that you could say are loosely associated with the storm just off the coast of Vietnam. And to its northeast, there's a pulse of a high cloud that's still being pushed outwards by the storm, almost reaching Iwo and Kyushu in Japan. So,
Wait, did you say Hiroshima?
Iwo
Hiroshima. Okay.
Iwo an island to the southwest of Ogasawara.
Oh wait, there's an actual. So you didn't mispronounce Hiroshima.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's quite far. And I don't know how you get that. That's
No,
quite far from
I
Hiroshima to Iwo Jima.
I heard Hiroshima, and I thought Nathan said Hiroshima. Okay, carry
Don't
on.
worry about it. Right, yes. Yeah, there's not too much for me to show at this point, I don't think. But we are here for another 15 minutes, and then we'll have we'll put you back to an automated stream for our YouTube viewers right here. Let's get some more questions. Kyle says, Hone in Hawaiian means to trick and play pranks or be mischievous.
Oh my god. So I'm going to call someone a hone, right?
Where did he learn that from for the Hone thing?
Hone is a Hawaiian term or something like that.
I mean, it is the Central Pacific. It makes sense for it to be Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And will we be around for Pegasus 8 a.m. advisory? In my experience, they don't do it on time, so I would say that we
No,
won't be.
they don't.
But I imagine, I don't know for sure, but there may be a video update later on this morning. If any of our team are available, I'm not sure yet. And then we may well have another live event late in the evening local time, maybe. But We've always got our fail-safe, which is our automated stream where people can always take a look at what's going on demand. Sigma says, why does Doksuri look like Matthew when it looked like a skull on some imagery?
Okay.
It's just a satellite covering.
Daniel.
Storms can look like that quite
Why
a bit.
did you make that,
They
Daniel?
can.
Now,
That's
What?
just how the imagery scale works.
Yeah. Yeah, some questions, some comments about that. How much rainfall will they get from Typhoon? Yeah, let's try and get back to the GFS because I show the rainfall at the end, but I first want to show the long range forecast and just go through all of that before we look at rainfall, which is going to be important. So let me just see if it's worked now that it goes all the way out. It still doesn't? Oh my goodness. Well, that's a model fail right there. That would be a TWB cancellation. Alright then, let's show you the expected rainfall then in the next 7 days. We won't be able to show you the long range on tonight's stream, sadly. But we hopefully can show you the rainfall. Unless that's not working either. Yep, looks like we've got a bit of a model fail. We've not got rainfall either at the moment. Suffice to say, it will be a lot. But, yep, still not working for me right now, I'm afraid. But what we were looking at is, I mean, they show up on the bottom of the screen every so often for each area. And some places, as I was looking it up earlier, probably getting over 400 millimeters. There's even one or two isolated spots that could get up and above 700 millimeters, which is certainly quite a lot. That is over 30 inches, nearly 30 inches. That's quite annoying, to be honest, that we can't have the rainfall estimates though. I'm disappointed in that. So a comment, when is the next live stream on this channel in Philippine time? Well, like I said, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be yet. As soon as we know, we will schedule it on our YouTube channel, and then hopefully that gives us enough. Hopefully we can do it with enough notice, prior notice. But I expect that there will be some kind of update, whether it's a normal video update or whether it's a live stream in the evening local time, and possibly an extra one during the day. Salmon says that they're expecting that Doksuri is going to be a category 5 as it's now 150 miles per hour, and we did not expect that it would exceed 140 miles per hour. Fair point. I mean, you've got to go with a number on a forecast. You know, if we had a cone of uncertainty for the intensity, then we might have had 150 at the top end, maybe higher. Right now, I would say we'd probably have 160 on the high end of that cone. Maybe even more, I'm not sure. But right now, 150 miles per hour still looks good for it, by the way. And with that shield increasing on that northwestern side, it does raise the question whether we might see a little bit more intensification before it reaches the islands that could be ravaged by this storm, the Babian group of islands particularly, and possibly the Batanas. Signal 3 warnings in effect for some of those areas right now, as well as the northeastern tip of Luzon, most of Cagayan province, and extending into northern Apayao province, I think that was.
Hold on, does this work? Okay, we are starting to have some visual, on-the-ground visual on Twitter or X, whatever the hell Elon wants to call it. This is video from Boracay. I have no idea where that is, but as you can see, it is quite windy.
Oh,
it's a windy Tuesday morning there.
Well, there we go, we've got it now. Boracay, that's in the central Philippines there, off the just southwest of Romblon, and we're having trouble with that imagery. But as you can see, there it is. It's windy. Boracay, very well-known resort in the central Philippines, and yeah, a fair bit of wind, as expected. Maybe a little bit higher than one might expect there. They're not under any signal warnings, and we'll save repeating that any more times there as we go back to the satellite imagery. You can certainly hear that wind, that's for sure.
And the water also seems quite choppy, but that's also to be expected.
Well, that's in the inland seas as well. It's not the ocean-facing coastline, so things could be getting really busy along the. And let's not forget right now, for those who didn't hear earlier, tropical storm force winds, gale force winds will be occurring right now in all of the eastern coast of the Signal 3 warning zone right now, and possibly around to Santa Ana, and maybe a little bit further south than that as well in Isabela province. So a few shots that we saw Palawan earlier on, which had lots of low cloud and maybe rain. Lots of cloudiness over the whole Philippine Islands right now, and you just saw that view from Boracay, which had some very gusty winds, even though they're quite a distance from the center of the storm, and I would say probably about maybe 300 or 400 kilometers from tropical storm force winds. So it's quite impressive that it looked like that. Movement still northwest right now. I'll be interested to see what the next ATCF update comes up with, although I'm not sure we're going to get a hold of it before we finish tonight. Just that the
probably.
interpolated was entering the category 5 threshold. Yeah, I know.
That will be interesting.
But there's no indications that this is a category 5 or close to it, really. ADT still running with 127 knots, which is quite close to our current intensity that we've got for it right now. We're running with 150 miles per hour sustained winds and a pressure of 930 millibars. That's 240 kilometers per hour sustained winds. More comments here. Would China get typhoon force winds from Doksuri? I would say that's quite likely, although if it does plow straight into Taiwan, then those chances will go down a lot. And Tate in the comments there saying they can't wait for the virtual flight at 1:30 a.m. UK time. And did I crash the landing? They fell asleep last night. The flight sim itself crashed, as a matter of fact. Not me. I was actually on approach to landing, and it crashed.
That's sad.
Which was very disappointing to witness at 4:30 in the morning.
That's very sad,
A
Nathan.
3-hour flight. Yeah, very sad. But I
Well,
figured
at least
out...
it didn't crash while you were in the storm itself. That's a
True.
silver lining.
We got to
at
see all the
least.
storm. That was good. I figured out what the problem is, though. It's a faulty USB, because the flight sim is stored on my external hard drive, which isn't the best practice, but it's the only place where there's room for such a big thing like that. Anyway, more comments here. What will be Doksuri's lowest pressure? We saw on some models earlier 919 possibly was from one of the models.
I think I saw
SO
one
models.
where it had a run for 918 millibars.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably somewhere around like maybe 920, 918 millibars or something like that.
But it
Something
could
like
go.
that's reasonable.
It could go further than that.
Maybe 917 for all we know, but we'll just have to see. It still has time before. Well, actually, is it entering an eyewall replacement cycle?
Not yet, I don't think. But maybe it's not too far away. It's hard to gauge. More comments here. Do we think, oh dear, that Typhoon Doksuri is going to end up like a skull soon? And who also thoughts on peak?
Oh my god, can we stop talking about this?
Daniel, why did you bring this up earlier?
Yeah, this is all Taniel's fault.
Dang it. Dang it.
I mean, make your own conclusions on what you think this storm looks like, but Hurricane Alton Ebron says thanks for the update, thank you. And Sal says that they're in Manila, nothing extraordinary, not even the slightest of winds, which
Wow.
is quite interesting. Things might change, although Manila, I don't think we're ever going to get very strong winds, but things could get gusty on the backside of the storm possibly. You are in signal 1, of course, like pretty much all of the rest of Luzon that aren't in any higher warnings. So there could be some gusty winds here and there, but nothing really major. But once again, rainfall concerns, especially if the storm impacts Taiwan, I would say we could be heading towards 1,000 millimeters if that happens. I remember Nepartak in 2016, in one day in Taiwan, I believe it dropped about 920, 940 millimeters of rain, I think it was. I remember covering that and watching those numbers update when it happened. So I would say that this storm could do something quite similar. It is very regrettable that I can't show you the rainfall forecast graphic, which is unfortunate. I would have really liked to have done that, but I can tell you that we could be expecting 400 millimeters or higher in one or two spots in northern Luzon and on the outlying islands, which could get even more than that, as a matter of fact, possibly towards isolated maximums of 700 millimeters.
Of course, the storm doesn't have to be particularly a storm doesn't have to be particularly strong for it to be a catastrophic rainfall impact. In recent memory, the most destructive storm for Taiwan it was 2009 Morakot, which was I believe only a category 2, but the rainfall was absolutely devastating for the island. So just want to keep that in mind for all the viewers that starting to have that conception that it's not always the case. It really is a case-by-case basis.
Well, the only tropical storms that have been retired in the Atlantic were due to rainfall.
That is
Large
true.
amounts of rainfall, especially Imelda. Did that get retired?
Imelda?
I can't even
Really?
remember if it
I don't
got
think
retired
so.
anymore, but that caused huge amounts of rain. Everyone thought it would get retired. And because everyone thought it would get retired, I can't even remember anymore whether it actually did or not. Just one or two more comments before we finish here. Do we think that Pegasa will hoist signal 4 and 5 now that Doksuri is stronger? They'll definitely do 4. I don't know about 5 yet. They seem to be very cautious whenever they do that. So, do I think they should?
It is
Based on the actual definition? Probably. For some of those
It is
little islands.
very stringent. Like, ever since its introduction, I think Signal 5 has only been hoisted twice, 3 times, so they're very strict about that one.
They want to do it for only the most serious cases. That much is clear. Well, anyway, we're going to finish up now. We'll have regular updates on our channel and beyond, wherever you're watching us from tonight. We've been streaming to 3 platforms on this occasion, and we are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter live, and we'll have updates on all of those platforms as we go on with videos and images and anything else that we want to share here as we watch this storm get closer to land. Next up is a virtual flight into the storm on the Force 13 Extra channel. But in the meantime, if you're watching us on the main YouTube channel, you'll now be redirected to our automated feed. Thanks very much to our team, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, and hope today goes well.